USB cable update. I bought a USB cable off of Amazon, a USB left angle cable. So it goes out of here, down here, and into the Octopus board. That now matches the LDO kit revision C wiring diagram. As stated in earlier video, this is the cable that I got with my kit. And when this cable is plugged in, it plugs in this direction, so the cable is pointing down towards what's the table, because this is the bottom of the printer, so it's going to be pointing towards the table you put the printer on. It's going to be the lowest hanging thing in the printer. It would work, but I was not happy with the way that wire was routing, where this is what's shown in the manual, and that's how I wanted it. So I bought that off Amazon. And then I looked at the LDO kit revision A and B wiring instructions, and I think this cable and this type cable were both used in revision A and B, but this is the only one that's used in revision C. In revision A and B, it appears that this cable is plugged into the Octopus here and then routed up to the Raspberry Pi. Now, if this cable was plugged into the Octopus board, it would be in this orientation. So again, it would be flush with the wire pointing down, unlike if you plug this into the Raspberry Pi, it will be with the wire pointing here towards the ground, not towards the printer. So this wire would be pointing that direction, and then the wire would go to the Raspberry Pi. I think, I didn't actually read the A and B instructions because I have a revision C, but that might be how they were providing power to the Raspberry Pi, whereas now they use this breakout board here and this breakout board here. So power comes out of the Octopus board and goes into the Raspberry Pi here. So I think the issue was, this is the kit. This is the part that came in my kit out of the two cables that used to go in the old kits, when this is the one that should have been in my kit. Not a big deal. Like I said, this one would have worked. It just, I was not happy with the fact that the wire's pointing down. So it was fairly cheap to buy my own cable. I did hear back from Matter Hackers. They wanted pictures of what I was talking about, so I just sent them a link to the video where I discussed that cable, and also where I discussed the issue I had with these triangle mounts here that mount the extrusions that the bed mounts to. How the old version of the kit, the two bolts, the recesses here, one was deeper that goes into this extrusion. This one was shallower that goes into this extrusion, so it didn't bottom out of this extrusion. So I received one of the old style and then 3 of the new style that have the same depth. So you can take this triangle and flip it either direction and it'll work. Whereas, and it's not this specific one I'm pointing at, I think I put it in the back. But the one that I received that has different depths, if you put it in the wrong way, the bolt will bottom out on the inside of this extrusion, so it won't be able to be tightened down flush, so that corner will be sticking up too high. So I sent them links to my video. Like I said, I think that these will be okay, because the important thing is that they're flush with the bottom of this extrusion, and I'm pretty sure they all were, but I just wanted to let them know that I had that issue in case anybody else mentions it. The other thing I just did now is this gantry, this carbon fiber Chaotic Lab gantry, plus the Chaotic Lab CNC tap mod are going to cause me some wiring issues. The CNC tap has a mount for the X-axis on it, the X end limit switch mounts down there, and the carbon fiber gantry kit, the Y micro switch, mounts somewhere over here, whereas the LDO kit comes with a PCB that has both the X and Y switches on it and mounts to the 3D printed piece of the gantry here, which, because I have the carbon fiber kit, I can't reuse that PCB because it doesn't mount properly to the carbon fiber. It's made to mount to the specific printed piece. So I was concerned about the wires that go from the tool head and eventually work their way under the printer to plug into the boards under the printer. And you can't really see it because I've got this on its side, but the wires for the fans, the lights, the thermistor, the heater for the nozzle, all that stuff, all those wires connect to a little PCB in here. And then that PCB has a 14-pin connector, 14 wires that connects. That goes eventually under the printer to this breakout board right here. So you can see the 14-pin connector here, 7 on the front, 7 wires on the back. And then you can see they're broken out into their individual wires that go to the boards. So what I was worried about is because I've got this 14-pin connector, and then this 4-pin connector is for the XY PCB. So it's got 4 wires, 2 for X, 2 for Y. But if I'm not using that, how am I going to wire up the end stops? So what I did, at least for the X, back on the tool head, I used my multimeter and I went over the pins, and I found that on the PCB, on the tool head, there is a 2-pin header for the X limit switch. The LDO manual says it's not used. It's only used for the switch wire. It's not used for this because the LDO kit includes the PCB that has X and Y together. But it's on that PCB, so I thought, well, can I still use it? So I just checked one of the wires, one of the 2 wires for the X end stop, and found that it's the second wire down here. And so I tested with my multimeter, and sure enough, from the tool head to here, it makes contact. Then I checked down here, and it makes contact to one of these pins as well. So then I did the final check, and I went up on the board where the X end stop is connected, and there's continuity from that down to this second pin. So even though this is designed for the X and Y end stops to come in here on a 4-pin cable, the X end stop can be transferred through the 14-pin cable, which is good news. It means I don't think I have to run any additional wires for that. Now I need to double check because this breakout board has more than 14 wires coming into it, or coming out of it, but it's only got 14 wires going in. So I need to double check that, but I think I might be able to get away with just using that 14-pin wire and not running another 2 wires for the X limit switch. So that's about the only update I have at this point, other than the fact that the wiring is going to be a larger problem than I thought, because the Chaotic Lab gantry system is made for using an umbilical and not cable chains. So this is the umbilical that goes on the Chaotic Lab gantry. It does not include anything for your tool head, where you would obviously need another umbilical setup. It doesn't even mention it. You're on your own to figure that out. And like I said, this is a 14-pin cable. I put it away. I won't dig it out right now. But the connector is big enough to plug into this. Obviously, there's no way that I can cram that connector through this umbilical. So I have to figure out how to pop the pins out of the connector to send them through this. And I don't know if this is big enough to hold 14 wires, and then you should put some kind of nylon wrap or something around them to protect them. I don't know if it's even possible to do that, or if you have to go to a CAN bus system that replaces these wires with just 4 wires to the tool head. So another thing I was not expecting that I might have to do is, before I even get this thing running, I might have to modify it for CAN bus, or maybe get it up and running just by trying to tie up all the wires so they don't snag on anything, so I can actually print parts for the tool head. Yeah, it's again something I was not expecting. The manual for the Chaotic Lab thing, it just doesn't mention anything about that, which kind of bugs me. Yeah, it shows you this, and it shows that cut a piece of wire that is no more than 2 millimeters thick and bend it into a U shape, and it mounts underneath this umbilical as kind of a strain relief so the wires don't bend too far or kink. And that's all the information it has on the umbilical. It doesn't tell you anything about, by the way, you're going to need to figure out how to get an umbilical onto your tool head. It doesn't say, by the way, it'll only work with CAN bus, or if this is actually okay to cram the 14 wires through. Yeah. So again, bit off a bit more than I can chew. I guess I should have got it running with the standard kit, and then I could have figured out what I needed and been able to print it on this printer with the standard kit to allow me to upgrade to the carbon fiber kit. But just in case anyone else is thinking about that, it's something you're going to have to deal with if you get that carbon fiber kit. It wants to be using an umbilical, and you've got a lot of wires to transfer unless you do the CAN bus mod. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet at this point. I'm still waiting on the 3D printed part that'll allow me to get my bed wires installed, and then I think all I'll have left is the tool head wiring. I think I'm just about done with everything else. Obviously the enclosure and setting up all the software, but as far as wiring, I'm pretty far along. But this is going to be a major snag if I have to read all about CAN bus and do that modification and figure out how to get an umbilical mount for my tool head printed, since I don't have an enclosure on my Prusa to print ABS, unless maybe I can print one out of PETG just to get this up and running, and then make my first print on this, the umbilical, so I can replace the PETG part on this with the ABS part before the PETG part melts due to the chamber temperature of this when you're printing ABS. So there we go. Update of more unexpected things, but still making a little bit of progress.